remember from like Renato Moicano was, freaking him calling out the MMA guru and like cursing him out. And then he went on apparently YouTube Live right after and went on YouTube Live and was like, cursing him out some more, sandwiched in like, this is just an act. Like, I got love for you, brother. I appreciate what you're doing. Like, you're bringing a lot of fans. You're doing a great job. But F you, blah, 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 blah. I went off another tangent there. He, talked about his dad having kids at 60 years old and that he's going to do the same thing and repopulate the world and that he loves America and he wants to get, after his green card is up in 2 years, he's going to be a full citizen. Then he wants to become a police officer because he wants to protect. He really covered a wide swath of things. A lot of good talking on the mic last night. What do you remember?
I also love America. I love money. And if you weren't already and you like those things, you should now be a fan of Money Moicano. I'm a big fan. It sucks when you see two guys go up against each other that you both like. It was tough to see Drew Dober get a loss in the way that he did too. Moicano was kind of in that half guard the whole time. Just the second round, had a little bit of action, but Moicano went out there, implemented game plan, got the W, and got on the mic, and that's what's most important. He's definitely electric on the microphone. I also love America, and I appreciate people that vocalize on the microphone when they agree with me and my viewpoints. So I'm now a Moicano fan for sure. What else did you take away from last night?
Well, let's pull up the card here and take a look at it. But I think the Nasruddin Imavov, I remember, a strong first round. I remember a lot of eye pokes last night. A lot of eye pokes, a lot of stoppages. I thought there would be more calls for the curved gloves. I remember somebody mentioning that this is, a reason why we need to get those curved gloves in the UFC. I'm not sure what the holdup is there, what deal or what pending litigation or whatever the hell is keeping them from instituting that. What do you think?
So Trevor Whitman is apparently the mastermind behind this curved prototype. It's a Justin Gaethje, Trevor Whitman invention, and they're still just coming out with more and more prototypes, trying to refine it until they get it into the UFC. Because, as far as I know, they haven't even given them out to other fighters. The only one that's training with them actively is Justin Gaethje.
Right.
I've heard stories on podcasts of fighters going into other gyms where he's training or he's popping in, and they're like, "Yo, let me get a pair." They're not ready yet. They're probably they want to get them perfect before they put them out there in the UFC, because the second that it's like anything else. There's going
to be demand.
Yeah, but the Venom uniforms come in, there's criticism of that.
Right.
Reebok, there were criticisms there. Anytime you change something, there's massive criticisms. And I think they just want to eliminate any sort of flaws to reduce the scrutiny when they do come out. So it's just a matter of time. Maybe more eye pokes will get the public really asking for them, though. So
could be.
A couple more negatives, and maybe we'll get a positive at that point. Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see. I forget who said it, but somebody was like, "Oh, what do we have to wait? What do we have to see? Like somebody get their eye literally gorged out." There was a full stoppage last night, and props to Lorosenko. Who was it with the eye stoppage? It was the no contest. Mahmoud Muradov got poked in the eye with a thumb from Alyashka Kizrayev, is who will be I think determined last night is the correct, or at least close to correct pronunciation, is thumbed in the eye. And it was funny. Lorosenko in the corner goes, not that I'm diagnosing it, but, if you ever have a corneal abrasion, it looked like it might be a corneal abrasion, and here's why, and list 2 or 3 reasons why. And then the doctor comes in shortly thereafter. It's like, oh, this might be a corneal abrasion. So Lorosenko going out there having a great night, and it's called, I think, Road to the UFC finales, or there was more fights that happened after the UFC event was over, and she went and called those two. Really proven coming onto the scene why she belongs here. She really, from when she got an opportunity to begin calling fights, announcing fights, before the card on the, from the sidelines, I guess. So, for lack of a better term, or so you could say, and then, now to actually being cage side, she's killed it at every phase. So really, props to her.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You can't not be a Lorosenko fan at this point. She's caught so much flack in the sport, and it sounds, just for being a woman in the sport and speaking about it while having no fighting experience, she catches a lot of stuff for that. And she's stuck through it. She's such a hard worker. She's at every single event, whether it be Contender Series. and like she's been through some weird and awkward moments in MMA, right? Like most recently with Chris Weidman, that was a weird one. And you got to give her a lot of credit. She just sticks through it and perseveres and continues to deliver like great calls, like the one that you just mentioned. Like she's so on the money with so much stuff. It's not like she's, a diversity hire and they just threw her in there and she actually brings something to the table. So I'm a Laura Sanko fan and it's good to see her succeed.
100%.
Yeah. I got a lot of love for her. She's really cool. And again, like some funny moments with her, like her love for Shavkat, that always cracks me up.
Oh, it's funny, and she had to defend it recently. Like, I'm married, I have my husband, and I don't know if it's like a joke for everybody, but I think a lot of people are in on the joke. But it's definitely kind of like bleeding that line of serious and not.
I think it's just like for me, I could say I don't even know if she intended it to be like that too. Like I love Charles Oliveira. That not in that way, he's just a cool fight. Whatever. It's I get it, but it's a funny joke, and it has been dragged out a little bit far at this point. But huge Laura Sanko fan. Great call. Charles Radke got on the microphone after his win last night and didn't drop any profane words.
Wasn't super crazy.
Yeah, because I first fight in the UFC, first win back in Australia, and he gets on the mic and says some out of pocket stuff. And somebody got in his ear after that and was like, "Hey, man, next time you do that, you're out." Well, maybe not, but like, I don't know. I really don't know. He probably just caught some stuff online. Actually, remember he put out that apology right after that. But he definitely handled himself a little bit better last night. And then Molly McCann.
Well, why don't we jump into the past picks and we'll break it down at that point.
Our new segment, Past Picks.
All right. I got it all queued up, so I think you're going first, and we'll talk about each fight as we go. But let's see how we did this past week on picks.
Starting with our prelim notables, I'm going with Julia Stolyarenko over Luana Carolina.
Luana Carolina took that one, right? Yeah,
I believe so. I do mention while I'm looking at it here, make sure if you're watching these prelims, check out the Blake Builder versus Zhang Yang Li fight. That's going to be a banger of a featherweight fight. I like Blake Builder a lot.
It was a banger, though.
Not enough to take him one way or another. So going with Julia Stolyarenko, Themba Gorimbo over Pete Rodriguez, and I'm going to take Diana Belbita over Molly McCann. For the main card, I'm going to go Charles Radke over Gilbert Urbina, Ali Askab Khizriev over Mahmoud Muradov. That sounded a lot better that time than before. Natalia Silva over Vivian Araujo. Randy Brown over Muslim Salikov. Drew Dober over Hanato Money Moicano. Moicano on money. And I'm going with Roman Dolidze over Nasruddin Imavov. What do you got?
So what did you finish out there? About 4-4?
I wasn't even counting. Let's see. I got Luana Carolina wrong. That's 0-1, 1-1, 1-2, 2-2. The draw doesn't really count, I guess. 2-3, 3-3.
Didn't you pick Natalia Silva?
Oh yeah, I did.
So 3-2, 4-2, 4-3, 4-4.
Yeah, you were right. Yeah, that was disappointing, that last fight. We'll talk about that in a minute. Let's go through your picks too, though.
I am going with Jamal Pogues over Thomas Peterson. I'm going with Luana Carolina over Julia Stolyarenko. 2. I am going with Themba Gorimbo on Pete Rodriguez over Pete Rodriguez. And I'm going with Molly McCann to get it done over Diana Belbita. We have a good amount of disagreements on this card because I'm going with Gilbert Urbina to get the win over Charles Radke. I agree with you. Alyashkov Khizriev is going to get it done over Mahmoud Muradov. He kind of did. I like Natalia Silva to get it done over Vivian Araujo. Randy Brown over Muslim Salikov. Drew Dober over Hoynato Moicano. and I'm going to deviate. I'm going to go Nasruddin Imavov over Roman Dolidze, though I really expect this one to go to decision. And by expect, bang, bang.
All right.
7-2 for the kid.
Yeah, good stuff. Still early in the year, you know, I got time to. We're not that far apart still. You know, we kind of like landed similarly on the 297, I believe, and you know, still a long year ahead of us. One piece of advice for Roman Dolidze, outside of like anything fighting wise, as a man who just shaved his head, I think you should do it. His hairline is shot, dude. You just got to give it up. You know, I wish somebody would have told me so. If somebody could pass this along to Roman Dolidze, he'll be a better man for it, and it'll make him better at grappling too. He'll get sweaty and no hair to impede, and then he'll slip in and out of things. And but he does need to work on his hands and his grappling as well, outside of his haircut. And then he disappointed me big time, and then that beef between Nasruddin Imavov and Chris Curtis was kind of silly. Like, Chris Curtis is treading that line right now where he's like, for me, as a fan of the sport and a fan of like him and Strickland and their friendship, I like him a lot. But then when he goes off and does like his own thing, sometimes he enters like a little bit of like a cringe territory. But other than that, like, it's just, I don't know, not even like, he's trying to sell a fight right now, and I get that. Like, he wants to be in a 5-round fight. He had beef with Nasruddin Imavov in the past. He's sparking it up again. He's trying to sell himself, but I don't really know if Nasruddin Imavov is like a 5-round fighter. Like, that was kind of a whack main event last night. That's my piece about that. So, what do you got?
Yeah, I feel like, you know, in order to have the shenanigans and be involved with some of the things he's involved with, I would just need to see a little bit more of a dominant performance from him, you know, all around. Like, a couple times he's gotten some wins in close performances that are a little questionable. Or, you know, sometimes he's gone on the opposite side of a very like close decision, and then he, you know, him cries about it, you know, has an issue with it here or there. And, you know, I feel like sometimes with Chris Curtis, he would also like be like, I don't have an issue with this, and then turn around and have an issue with something. So like, you know, I feel like he's just, you know, at the center of a lot of drama. We're saying his name a lot, which could be a good thing, but also he doesn't have the wins or the dominant performances in the cage to kind of back both up that would propel him to stardom. It's just kind of a lot of talking with not a lot going on. And you got to be really a Conor McGregor status to do that. And the affiliation with Sean Strickland isn't doing quite enough, you know, to mend that gap here. So I agree with you, Chris Curtis. You know, I want to see like a big primetime knockout from him, and then automatically, you know, a lot of things, you know, change when you're winning. You're getting knockouts and you're exciting the fans in the cage. When that starts falling short, everything else kind of comes to a grinding halt. So I'd agree with you there. And Drew Dober, I think, put up a really good fight. So did Hermansson.
Chris Curtis needs the right dance partner. That's really what it comes down to for him. He has not had a fight in a while with anyone that's willing to stand and bang with him. He's a counter boxer at the end of the day. And so that's like Jack Hermansson wanted to stand on the outside and body kick Chris Curtis. The ultimate dance partner for him was Kelvin Gastelum. That was a sick brawl. And I love a good body shot, and Chris Curtis knows how to throw a good body shot, and so does Kelvin Gastelum. And that was a back and forth fight. He needs a dance partner, because he's going to sit back, and the second that you throw, he trades. So that's all it is. We could have a sick 5-round Chris Curtis fight.
It's all in the matchmaking.
It's all in the matchmaking. And then you also had Marc-Andre Barriault, who should have been that guy and ran away the whole time. Right. So it's a matter of dance partner for Chris Curtis at this point.
Fair enough.
He's going to engage. Anyways, I'm sorry. Continue on about Drew Dober.
No, I was just going to say, you said the name Jack Hermansson, and that makes me want to talk about what's coming up this weekend instead of living in the past. So let's talk about what's going on this week. Before we do that, let's roll the intro.
It's time!
Like we said,
everybody, back for another episode of Pickin Fights. I mean, you know, we've been talking for a while now, but just like, comment, subscribe, please, while you're here. If you jump in the comments in the chat, we will chat with you. We'll chat back. Definitely let us know what you think of our picks. If you got any questions, if you want to challenge us on any of our picks, go ahead. And then, you know, check us out on social media while you're here. Our names are under us, Spotify, all that good stuff. All right, let's jump in. We got Joe Pyfer.
My bad. I heard you say jump in, and I was like, all right.
Yeah, well, all good. I mean, I was gonna say let's do our prelim notables. Do you got any for us? Why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, I'm really excited as we get to the top of the card here. But on the bottom of the card, one thing that popped out to me is we got Devin Clark on the card again. Devin Clark is a guy who I feel like you could almost determine what's going to happen in his fights just based off of the matchup alone. If he is a guy who has really good takedown defense and a strong striking game with some power behind it, and especially if you have fast shots, Devin Clark is probably going to lose. He's probably going to get knocked out. He's not going to have a great time. But if he's going to be able to drag it to the ground and have some success in control time and land some ground and pound, or have the opportunity to hold you up against the cage for a long period of time, you're going to see a lot of success for Devin Clark against those opponents. In this case, I think Marcin Prachnio is the guy who is not going to go out there and be able to knock out Devin Clark. You look at some of the past matchups with Marcin Prachnio. You have a win over Khalil Roundtree before Khalil really hit his stride. You have a win over You have a win over Ike Villanueva, which isn't saying a whole lot, and you have a win over William Knight, which isn't saying a whole lot by decision, and you have a loss to Felipe Lins and Vitor Petrino by submission. I don't think Marcin Prachnio is going to have the ground game to be able to thwart Devin Clark, taking him down or at least holding him in a less advantageous position. I think Devin Clark, we can expect to see him win on the judges' scorecards just by a matter of control time in this fight. So I'm going to go Devin Clark to get this one done by decision.
Yeah, I like that pick. I agree, 100% agree. Devin Clark has better grappling than Marcin Prachnio. Marcin Prachnio seems to do better against guys that prefer to stand up. Devin Clark does not. Devin Clark does have decent enough hands to throw with Marcin Prachnio, though. Like not like throw, but stand up for every fight starts on its feet. So he's competitive enough there. So, yeah, I'm with you with Devin Clark. And can't ignore his name, Brown Bear, one of my favorites in the UFC. I got one I want to talk about, and that is a UFC debut by Bolaji Oki against Damir Hadjovic. Bolaji Oki, the Zulu Warrior, coming out of Belgium. 8-1 in MMA, UFC debut. He had his last fight in the Contender Series, and it was a devastating knockout. This is a guy that has a lot of power in his hands. He's not afraid to walk somebody down and just light him up. I feel like we've heard a story about this guy getting signed in the past, but just based on his Contender Series finish alone, go check it out. It's like 20 seconds long. Anyways, I'm going to be a fan of this guy when he comes in here and knocks out Damir Hadjovic. He's the premier fight on the prelims this week, and he's going to get it done by first round knockout. Minus 270 favorite right now. If you can get in there before the public starts to catch on, go for it. So yeah, I'm rolling with Bolaji Oki. I hope I'm saying that right. I doubt it though. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, I'm with you. This guy can throw. I watched your reaction to seeing him get that first round knockout. I think you said it was on the Contender Series.
Yeah.
This guy can absolutely throw. And you have Damir Hadjovic, who in a similar way to my next prelim notable. Damir Hadjovic has a history of getting knocked out. He's got a history of, he's not on a win streak, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Not on a win streak against a guy coming in with a lot of hype behind him, a shocking knockout. He's 28 years old against a 37-year-old. It's not the prime matchup that you're looking for. If you are Damir Hadjovic trying to get off the schneid at 37 years old against a bigger, longer, dangerous opponent in Bolaji Oki, someone who's got a lot of hype behind him, but between the UFC and his own fan base. So the Zulu Warrior coming in here, and I expect him to have a big time performance against Damir Hadjovic, the Bosnian bomber. One other fight that I wanted to talk about, and similar to Damir Hadjovic, is Trevin Giles, in the sense that coming off a loss, has some wins. I think almost an identical 5 recent fights where you have 2 losses, 2 wins, and then another loss. But you look at Trevin Giles as a guy who is good at a lot of different things, but doesn't stand out at any one particular thing. Not particularly fast or powerful hands, but does have the ability to land on you. Doesn't have particularly great head movement, but can get out of the way from some of the less strong strikers. Not great takedown defense or takedowns, but has the ability to defend them and get them if he needs to against guys who don't specialize in that particular area. 16-5, his 2 losses are to Dricus du Plessis by knockout and Mike Morales by knockout. After that, Louis Kosuke and Preston Parsons are not two wins that are of particular note. Not two fighters that are of particular note. And then he does have a loss to Gabriel Bonfim. Gabriel Bonfim, obviously part of the Bonfim brothers, and looking like one of the better ones, the better one at this time. He's going up against Carlos Prates, and this is the guy that I'm really betting behind in this situation. He's minus 225, but I expect him to get a knockout here, and that minus 225 is maybe a little bit sweeter to go by knockout, especially if you go in the first or the second round. I expect this to happen in the first half of the fight, and the reason being is Trevin Giles, like I was saying, against really strong strikers, doesn't get his head out of the way in fast enough time, and he can be sometimes left out in the open, especially in close exchanges. And I think Carlos Prates is a guy who's has a history of knockouts, 17-6, 5 wins in a row, knockouts over guys with pretty strong records, 16-9, 8-3, 12-6, 21-7. Whenever you're knocking guys out with a jab, it's something of particular note, and really good activity too. A knockout coming off of the Contender Series. Good activity. He's a little bit younger, but still in his prime, coming into his prime. He's a little bit bigger here, a little bit longer. I think he's got strong enough takedown defense to keep this fight standing. And because it's going to be a standing bout, I expect him to use his superior speed and power to find the mark and, eventually be able to take out Trevin Giles. Like I said, I think he's going to get this knockout in the second round if I had to bet on it. So with that being said, Keith is having some technical difficulties, highlighted by the fact that he is no longer on the screen. While he figures that out, I am going to review the prelims. Nothing else of particular note that I want to say in terms of something that I'm feeling strongly one way or the other. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to our main card picks. Adolfo Vieira fighting again this week. Talk about activity. 9-2. You look at maybe this is just imagined activity. I feel like he's been a lot more active than at least what his record is showing. Fought a year and a half ago against Chris Curtis. Got a loss there in a tightly contested bout. When he couldn't take Chris Curtis down, it was a kind of a hit for him as someone, the black belt hunter. And then, coming back against Cody Brundage, getting that submission arm triangle. He takes on Armen Petrosyan, who is a guy who is really good in terms of striking. We don't see him on the ground too much. In fact, against Kyle Moralo, he did go to the ground. Hey, and Keith's back. What's going on, Keith?
It wouldn't be an episode of this show without something happening to me.
Some weird, whether it's audio, visual, the entire stream collectively.
Yeah, the website just kicked me out.
The smoke, the fire department coming, something always happens to Keith.
This show should be famous. That's a comedic bit by now. When's it gonna happen?
It's gonna happen at some point. When's it gonna happen, and what's it gonna be? We could start taking bets. Write in the comments what you think the next disturbance to Keith's stream is gonna be.
Don't manifest anything for me though, like an earthquake or something.
Nothing catastrophic. Only minor inconveniences only.
Yeah, the comments are gonna be Keith gets cancer or some shit
We're not looking for anything that extreme. Calm down.
Yeah.
Armen Petrosyan taking on Adolfo Vieira. Adolfo Vieira is a guy who is really strong on the ground against people who aren't that good on the ground. When you have people who have really, really solid takedown defense, above, probably your top 10, 15% of the MMA community, Adolfo Vieira just has nothing to present. If he can't take you down, he doesn't have much of a striking game. He's trying to learn it. He's trying to come on strong with it. But at this point in his career, at 34 years old, he's not going to have the time and the ability to learn new things in order to be proficient enough at striking to stand with a guy like Armen Petrosyan, who's a little bit younger than him, but he's a lot bigger. He's a little bit longer than him, at least by his foot reach. I think he's going to have really fast kicks and really be able to tear up the front legs of Adolfo Vieira, and impede that takedown offense from Adolfo, and then just would basically leave him a sitting duck in the center of the octagon. I think you see Armen Petrosyan showcase his skills here. I know it is minus 105, basically nearly even here, but I'm feeling really strongly about Armen Petrosyan to get this one done. I think he potentially could knock him out. I know he hasn't had a knockout in a while, but I think he, it has a lot to prove here and not a lot of time to do it. At 8-2, still getting used to MMA. I think if he can get the success with the low leg kicks that I think he might be able to land a couple big ones on Adolfo Vieira early that makes him a standing target. Anything could happen here, but ultimately, I think he's got to land on those leg kicks before Vieira gets him to the ground, and that's what's going to be the big decision maker. I'm going to go with Armin Petrosian to get this one done. What do you think?
I 100% agree. I'm a fan of Armin Petrosian. I think he's got a lot of promise in the UFC. He's a great kickboxer. He's very technical on his feet. Like you said, that leg kick, he's got a nasty front leg kick. Just snaps that off real quick, kind of sneaks it in there. Never really throws it naked either. It's usually preceded by like a straight jab. And, he just gives his opponents a lot to think about on the feet. He isn't necessarily a finisher, like you said. But against a guy like Adolfo Vieira, who shows, like some gaps in his skill, on the feet, Armin Petrosian can go in there and piece him up, like you said, and great takedown defense from Armin Petrosian as well. That'll help him out in this fight against a Brazilian who definitely wants to take him to the ground. So I'm going with Armin Petrosian this week. Next up, we got Michael Johnson versus Darius Flowers. And I'm going to go with Michael Johnson here. He's been around. He's a staple of the UFC at this point. He's beat a lot of guys that went on to become big names. He also has fallen flat against guys that never really went on to be anything. So Darius Flowers, he's coming down to lightweight now, typically a welterweight. I don't like the weight cut. Michael Johnson's been at lightweight for quite some time. He's a vet. He's potentially in like that Neil Magny class of like guys that don't miss. They show up, and maybe he's got some history going back. But when his name is drawn, he's he's usually in there competing and putting on a good fight. And you don't like to see a guy drop down in weight. So I'm gonna go with Michael Johnson this week. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, this is a guy who's historically fought at middleweight. I'm looking and seeing out in when he was in Combat Zone. LFA, he fought at middleweight against Tim Hilly in LFA. He fought at middleweight in 2022. He had a canceled bout in 2022 in Dream FC at welterweight at 170. He made his Contender Series debut, which he won via shoulder injury from a slam in round one. He made that at welterweight at 170. So had already cut down, had a lightweight fight scheduled with Eric Gonzalez at 155, and he had to withdraw there. That was February of last year. In July of last year, he lost by rear naked choke to Jake Matthews in the middle of the second round. And then now he had in November, he had a lightweight fight with Osman Azatar. With that one was canceled, no reason given. Then now finally rebooked, first time booked with Michael Johnson here at lightweight 155. So it tells me a lot about Darius Flowers, especially you could see like in his picture, he's obviously a guy who carries around a lot of muscle. We're talking about from his fighter page here. Obviously, a guy who carries around a lot of muscle. I think the drop to 155 might be a challenge, might not be because he's done it a couple times before. But I think, we could definitely see him get tired. And I think because of the experience of Michael Johnson, you could try to exploit that. Again, Michael Johnson, his losses come to, a guy like Clay Guida, who's going to be a crafty veteran. You have a guy like Jamie Malarkey, who has a strong gas tank and ability to get hit. And even that was a split decision that went back and forth. And you have a Diego Ferreira, in which he knocked him out. So if Michael Johnson could be crafty enough to stay away from Darius Flowers, I think he can get the job done here. Looking at Tapology, I think Tapology ever so slightly, now that 71% is going with Johnson. So I'm going to go with the crew here. It's only minus 125 to have such a wealth of experience and just kind of familiarity with that weight. I'm going with Michael Johnson here.
Yeah, I like the pick. You gotta think maybe Vegas is banking on like the age gap or something there, but I like Michael Johnson here. What do we got next?
Brad Tavares taking on Greg RoboCop Rodriguez. I'm happy to see Gregory RoboCop. I keep calling him RoboCop. Gregory RoboCop coming back, making returning after this loss here to Bruno Ferreira. When she got knocked out, I think it was one of the first times we ever see him get knocked out. Yeah, he had that close decision, split decision, loss to Armin Petrosian. And then, we saw him go on that tear of knockouts, get knocked out, came back knocked out. Tennis to Louis Lin, a guy who you love saying his last name, 5 months ago. So I like that he's keeping active, 31 years old. RoboCop, continues to mark forward, continues to knock people out. No diminishment in his ability or his fighting style at all. So you love to see that. against the guy in Brad Tavares, 20-8. He was on a 2-fight skid, against Bruno Silva and Dricus du Plessis, and then got a win over Chris Weidman. Listen, I think Brad Tavares, even for being 36, I think he's 36, but he fights like he could be 41. He doesn't have anywhere near the pop in his step that Clay Guida even has at Clay Guida's advanced age. So I think Brad Tavares is a guy who's maybe just a little bit past his prime and further than what his age would suggest. I don't think he has much pop in his shots. His chin is starting to go a little bit, which used to be his calling card, being able to get in there and trade and exchange. But Dricus du Plessis is really put a beating on him for a long period of time. And then Bruno Silva, knocked him out. So I'm just a little bit nervous about Brad Tavares and his ability to have those long trades. And I know that Gregory RoboCop Rodriguez a year ago was knocked out by Bruno Ferreira, but I just don't think he's been in the wars that Brad Tavares has had at this point. I think he throws really hard and he throws fast. He's going to land in those exchanges. Brad Tavares, even though his chin is starting to crack, he doesn't show any signs of not getting into exchanges. So I think, if it's a battle of punching back and forth, I'm going with Greg RoboCop Rodriguez in this bout 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I like Gregory. I almost said the same thing. What were you calling him before? Robocock?
Robocock.
Oh yeah, that's a sick nickname. You can never get Bruce Buffer to say it, since you won't even say Jim fucking Miller. My cat pushing my laptop around. You can't even get him to say Jim fucking Miller, so you would never get him to say Robocock, even though like Robocock would be awesome, dude.
Robocock.
Yo, my cat's bugging out right now. It's almost dinner time for him. Anyways, I'm with you with Gregory Rodriguez. Brad Tavares, like you said, he doesn't really have that pop anymore. Like he can hang in there with guys. Dude, chill. He can hang in there with people. But he doesn't really, like, he'll trade, but he doesn't really have that explosiveness behind his punches that he really had. And like the Chris Weidman that he beat up was that post broken leg Chris Weidman. Like it wasn't really a fight. Cut it out, man. So I'm going with Gregory Rodriguez. He's still like a little bit more youthful and still has a lot of power, and he's good. Like Robocock is a good fighter, so I'm gonna go with him. Yeah, I gotta, dude, cat chill. I'm gonna feed him right now on live stream.
All right, now it's been a first of everything. If you had the cat was actually going to disrupt the stream as the guess of what was going to mess with Keith's stream next, you win. I didn't guess that it was going to come about 2 picks later, but here we are. So next fight up on the card, you have Ihor Porteria, duelist, take on Robert Breszczyk. That's a name that I'm for certain is not being pronounced correctly. This is a guy who's going to make his UFC debut here on this card. 33 years old, 185.8 pounds is what he weighed in at last. 6 foot tall, no reach given here on Tapology against Ihor Porteria. 2-3 over his last 5, 25 overall, fighting out of Kiev. 27 years old. Latest weight was in at 205, and these guys are fighting at middleweight here. So Ihor Porteria dropping down after his loss just 2 months ago to Rodolfo Bellato. Has a loss before that, 8 months before that, to Carlos Ulberg, in which he was knocked out. Has a win over Mauricio Shogun Hua, which I think Mauricio Shogun Hua was coming in at the ripe old age of 104. And then you have Nikolai Negomereanu knocking him out before that in 2.5 years. He made his UFC debut, or his Contended Series debut, which got him into the UFC with a knockout over Lukasz Stodolski. So in this one, I think it's pretty clear. You have a lot of knockouts on one side against, obviously 11-12, not super quality, 7-1, 28-17, 16-5. Robert Breszczyk, not a ton of film or tape on him, but just looking at Ihor Porteria, he doesn't give me really any reason to have confidence in him or his chin or his stand-up striking ability here. I think Robert Breszczyk is going to get this one done. He's coming into the UFC. I think they're kind of strategically matching these guys up to see, just how bad the competition that Robert fought was, or how good it was, and then really assess where the skill level of Ihor Porteria is. Does he, belong in the UFC, or are you going to drop to what it for over your last 5? I think this could potentially be the nail in the coffin for Ihor here. So you're going to see him coming out really aggressive, but I think, being knocked out just 2 months ago, going down in weight shows a guy who's eager to get back in there. And I'm just, a little nervous about him against a power puncher who's eager to prove everything in Robert Breckic. He is a little bit older. So I think he might be a little bit more composed in there, where Ihor may be a little bit more sketched out. I don't have any odds on this, but I'm going to go Robert Breckic here, pending the odds. And while I look that up, what are you feeling for this fight?
I am not an Ihor Potieria guy whatsoever, and I don't think Sean Shelby and Hunter Campbell are much either, because Ihor Potieria fought Shogun Rua in his last fight in the UFC. It was his retirement fight. And, they don't always set up guys to go out with wins, but like Shogun was a legend, and a guy like Ihor, he's not really held in high standing. And, so they were kind of hoping that Shogun would go out there, get the win against him, and then Ihor knocked him out and did that stupid little Fortnite celebration that he did. Ever since then, he's been a little bit of like a sacrificial lamb setup guy, in my opinion, and I feel like that's what's happening here with Robert Breckic. I should know how to say that name with my, some Slavic roots in there, but nonetheless can't. Robert's easy, though, so Robert, I think, is just going to go out there and put out Ihor Potieria. Like you said, he's got a lot of power in his hands. Ihor Potieria is not up to par, not a great chin. His defining win is going to be putting out Shogun and then doing like that, putting him out of his misery celebration that he did or whatever it was when he like pretended to shoot him with a shotgun. So that'll be the highlight of Ihor's career. That's what we'll remember him for. And, is the guy that got his lights put out in Robert Brecic's UFC debut. And then, like you said, it's going to be Ihor Potieria is going to be out of the equation. So yeah, I'm with you on Robert Breckic. Ihor, I don't like Ihor at all.
It's interesting. So he was supposed to fight Albert Duraev, in which I'm looking at best fight odds, and it has Albert Duraev as the favorite here, -170. Duraev withdrew, and I'm not sure the timing of everything, but now that's Ihor Potieria stepping in on short notice. I'm going to see if I can pull it up, Ihor Potieria, and see if we can get any information on him stepping in on short notice. But yeah, that explains why he was knocked out just 2 months ago and coming in at a different weight class.
No, it absolutely does. None of this bodes well. Sorry to cut you off, but like literally all of this goes wrong for Ihor. That's probably why there's no odds up, because they're just so crazy right now. Major setup fight. Yeah, this is going to be good. It's going to be a hard weight cut. He might not even make weight. All signs point Robert Breckic.
Yeah. All right. You want to move on to the next fight?
Yeah, let's do it. As I wait for Dan Ige versus Andre Fili. This is a great fight. This is a really sick fight. I want to root for Andre Fili because I feel like we're starting to see this resurgence of touchy-feely in the UFC. He had that quote last time about how he likes big booty Latinas. And that alone will get the masses on your side, especially after a knockout like he had against who was that he fought last?
Lucas Almeida.
Almeida, yeah, that was a great TKO win. And then you get on the mic and say something like that. I'm a fan. Dan Ige is a staple of the featherweight division. He's been there a while. He's fought some great competition. Dan 50K Ige. He's like kind of always middled out in this division where gets a couple of wins, gets a couple of losses against good competition. So he's always kind of floating there. Based on patterns, I would be tempted to take a Dan Ige L, because he's got those 2 losses, 2 wins. It would be like an extended Derek Lewis, because Derek Lewis goes win, loss, win, loss. But and also it looks like Andre Fili has too, loss, win, loss, win. But I'm having a tough time with this one. I think I'm gonna go Dan Ige just because Dan Ige's been, in there with some great guys. He's got great boxing, he's got a sick ground game, good wrestling, good jiu-jitsu. He's fought the better competition of the 2 guys, and he's hung in there with them and taken some nasty damage. So and his chin doesn't really like show a lot of damage, while he wears it on his face from time to time, he doesn't really get his lights put out. So I'm going to go with Dan Ige here, but Andre Fili could surprise us. What do you think, Tom?
Mhm. Yeah, I think Andre Fili is a type of fighter that sometimes if you're very traditional and you don't do a lot, you can get the better of him because he can throw some more spinning attacks and more wild and non-traditional style of strikes. I think that a guy like Dan Ige can stay within himself, use his composure. He is technically the younger fighter. He's maybe been through a little bit more damage. He's maybe taken a little bit more damage throughout his career, but I think if he can stay composed and walk down Andre Fili, get Andre Fili on the back foot, he's going to have a lot more difficulty throwing off his offense. I think Dan Ige is going to keep a better composure, going to keep better cardio throughout the length of the fight. And that jab and that 1-2 that he likes to harp on, I think is going to ultimately come out there for him. I think Danny Gay has fought better competition, and Andre Fili, you look at some of the fights that he's had. Anderson Brito is, a very similar style of fight to him in which he did knock him out. But Danny Gay is not a guy that I'm particularly worried about getting knocked out. He has a very stellar chin for 32. Now, granted, that could have a crack at any moment, but I'm confident in Dan Ige's chin until I see an issue. And then, his losses to, like I said, Anderson Brito, but he had a split decision win over Bill Algeo, which was very tight. And then, Nathaniel Wood is a very similar fighter that's boxing heavy first with good grappling if he needs it. So I think Dan Ige matches up very well with Andre Fili, and I think he's going to go out there and get the win for, Extreme Couture fighting. Still, I think a lot of Hawaiians after, the wildfire still, feel like they have something to prove and feel like they have a real strong attachment to a cause that they're fighting for. So I think Dan Ige, kind of enveloped by that, is going to go out there and fight very, very passionately. And I expect him to go out there and get the win in a decision.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring that up, man. Like the mainstream media, they forget about Hawaii, but we don't forget about Hawaii at Pickin Fights. We're one of the only sources that you'll still hear talking about it. We have not forgot the people of Lahaina, and neither should you. Next fight, what do we got? Main event?
Main event time.
This is a good one. If you haven't yet, I definitely recommend tuning into Joe Pyfer on Joe Rogan. That was a great episode. You really learn about like what a throwaway kid was and about Joe Pyfer's childhood. And just to surmise it for the people at home, abusive home, homeless, moved around, couch surfed, got an opportunity, broke his arm in his first Contender Series fight after going undefeated as an amateur, and was carted off to the ambulance. He was still homeless, had to go back into the UFC, into the amateur circuit, got another chance on the Contender Series, made his way into the UFC, and he's been putting everybody's lights out since he's been here. Wins over guys like Gerald Mearshart, some like staples of the UFC at this point. Now he's facing Jack Hermansson in a main event. And I believe Jack Hermansson is ranked 10 in the middleweight division. So this is a massive step up in Joe Pyfer's trajectory through the UFC. Like, there's a chance that we see Joe Pyfer fighting for either like a #1 contender spot or maybe even a belt this time next year. Because we talk about Dana White privilege. He's definitely got it. After that Contender Series fight that got him into the UFC, Dana White gave him a place to live and said, be Joe Pyfer if you want to be in the UFC. His story sells, and he's a class act. He doesn't really like offend people. So he's got like the Sean Strickland element of relatability for, that market of just, overall like abuse and disenfranchised people, I guess you could say, or forgotten people. And so he's got like that element going for him where something could have gone wrong in Joe Pyfer's life and he would have been a very bad guy. He probably would have been a successful criminal because he broke Francis Ngannou's punching record at the Apex. Wouldn't even need a gun to rob a bank, probably. As soon as he throws one punch at a teller, they're all like, okay, here's the money. All that being said, we've seen that being an abused child and being open about it is a great base for MMA. Joe Pyfer's got hands. Joe Pyfer's got a story that sells. He's clearly motivated. He's like that hungry young dog that has a lot to prove and a lot to fight for. Part of like his motivation is his dad wanted to be a fighter and would beat him up just to show that he could when he was like 15, 16 years old. So, and when he broke his arm, his dad texted him and was like, on your ass or like on your back, just how you like it. So he's got a lot of motivation. Like there's a hungry dog in Joe Pyfer. And with the strength, the striking capability, the power in his hands, he's got good grappling. He's a scary man. And I really think that the ceiling is the roof for Joe Pyfer. I say that a lot, but like He's got unlimited potential in the UFC, especially in a middleweight division that is seeming to be like, we might see a time where the belt starts to trade hands quite a bit in this division. So there may be an opportunity for Joe Pyfer in the near future. Anyways, I can't glaze this guy anymore, bro. Like, all that is to say, Joe Pyfer, I'm a huge fan, and I think he's going to knock out Jack Hermansson. He has 5 rounds to work with. Jack Hermansson wants to keep it on the outside, throw body kicks. I don't even think he's going to shoot a takedown because he's scared of what's coming up the middle from Joe Pyfer. There's going to be a knee or an uppercut. He mixes things up really well up the middle, a front kick, anything. Jack Hermansson's going to play possum the whole fight and play coy. And Joe Pyfer, the second that he closes the distance and touches Jack Hermansson, it's going to be lights out. He does it to everybody. It's just a matter of getting in there and a matter of when. So I'm going with Joe Pyfer by knockout this week against Jack Hermansson. And that's in round 1 or 2. And I feel very, very good about that. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, the only thing I disagree with is the fact that you said that we could see Joe Pyfer, fighting for a title by this time next year. I think it could happen this year. You go out there, have a stellar knockout over Jack Hermansson, number 14, if not higher in the UFC. I think he's at number 10. Knockout, Jack Hermansson. That gets you a fight, probably within the top 5, outside of the top 5 in 2-3 months. Now you're fighting, just prior to summer, and you get a big knockout there. Yeah, I think you could see him fighting for a title shortly thereafter. It just depends on how good of a performance he has in this fight here against Jack Hermansson and who's available next. I just want to take a quick peek over at the UFC middleweight rankings and figure out who's out there, because there was a little bit of a logjam. We just had the belt turnover.
Pull it up on this screen too.
Yeah, 100%. I just had to pull it up real quick. So you have put on Dricus Duplessis. You have the middleweight rankings here. Well, this is the best I can get to showing the full thing, but you have Jack Hermansson here at 10, right? Joe Pyfer, he gets a win over Jack Hermansson at 10. You got to be looking for him to fight somewhere in this general 8 range. Roman Dolidze just lost. If he goes here, he can easily move up into, maybe he just moves into 8 or something like that, and they slide down, or he's in 10 or 9. Khamzat Chimaev is out for a little bit, but he's looking to fight. I don't think he has got a fight lined up. Brendan Allen doesn't have a fight lined up unless he does.
I don't believe so.
He's against Marvin Vettori. He's against Marvin Vettori. Jared Cannonier doesn't have a fight. He doesn't have a fight lined up. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe he has a great performance. And, Jared Cannonier, is he going to fight Dricus Duplessis? Is he going to come out and fight Dricus? You don't really know what's going to happen. Robert, Whitaker's here. There's a lot of guys who need a fight. And if, Joe Pyfer came out and he has a stellar performance, a lot of guys are going to be looking for a fight. He can easily find his way up here. He can go and maybe knock out Paulo Costa if they're trying to get him out of the UFC, have a matchup with Brendan Allen, who's, on the rise, Marvin Vettori, depending on how his fight goes. Jared Cannonier is open. Robert Whitaker's open. I don't know if he'll quite get all the way up here, but you figure he could maybe take a Roman Dolidze, and then get up here. The sky's the roof is, I guess, what I'm trying to say. And Joe Pyfer, if he goes out there and has the performance that I think he could, I think he can get anywhere between 7 and 3 to fight next. And if he gets in there, you could see him fighting for a title shortly thereafter, depending on who's holding the belt, what the matchups are, or whatnot. If it was based purely on skill, Joe Pyfer could fight for the belt this year.
How crazy is it that we could see a Sean Strickland Joe Pyfer matchup where they argue about who was abused more as a kid?
Jesus Christ.
My childhood was worse. No, mine. And then it'll all show me, who had the worst childhood. I'm a fan. And like you said, and then Paolo and Rob are matched up. I really think there's a world where we could see Marvin Vettori or a Jared Cannonier fight next up for Joe Pyfer. And he doesn't really take a lot of damage just because of how quickly he ends fights too. So, and he cuts weight, but he does it well. One of his priorities getting into the UFC was nutrition and stuff like that. We do see some UFC fighters get into the promotion, and that kind of takes a little bit of a backseat as they build their bankroll until they can afford that, because of the opportunities that he's been given. He's got a little bit of an advantage. So, it's like you said, Joe Pyfer, he might be champion pretty soon. There's a world where that happens. So, and I'm pumped for it because I like the guy a lot. You want to recap our picks? Do our little pick rundown?
Yes, sir.
Let's do it.
All right, up to you, my friend.
Okay. Just okay. So for my prelim notables, I'm going with Devin Clark over Marcin Prachnio and Balaji Oki over Damir Hajovic. I'm going with Armin Petrosian over Adolfo Vieira on the main card, Michael Johnson over Darius Flowers, Gregory Robocock Rodriguez over Brad Tavares, Robert Brajicek over Ihor Poteria, Dan Ige over Andre Fili. But like we were saying, like Andre Fili could surprise people, but I'm feeling good about Dan Ige. And I am feeling very good about an early knockout. Joe Pyfer over Jack Hermansson. I love it. Like, if you're going to take this fight, it's got to be by finish. Joe Pyfer by finish. My opinion. My humble opinion. What do you think, Tom?
I am going Devin Clark over Marcin Prachnio. I am going Balaji Oki over Damir Hajdovic. I am going Carlos Prates over Trevin Giles. When it comes to the main card, I got Armin Petrosian over Rodolfo Vieira, Michael Johnson over Darius Flowers, Gregory Robocop Rodriguez over Brad Tavares, Robert Brestchek over Ihar Porteria, Dan Ige to get the win in a decision over Andre Fili, and then Joe Pyfer to get a knockout. I don't know I wonder if we can get an over under in terms of the the fight here. Joe Pyfer. Let's
I feel like it's going to be 2.5. My prediction is going to be 2.5. Is like where you'll see that like minus 100 line or something.
Yeah, I'm not getting it on Sunday. I think that's maybe something that comes out Tuesday or Wednesday, maybe even Thursday, closer to the fight. But with that being said, yeah, I could potentially even say like a knockout in like the first 2 rounds, under 1.5, or definitely under 2.5. To get the finish for Joe Pyfer, make that a little bit sweeter. Minus 225 is not too bad. If that ends up being the final line, I think for him. Is that what it is? Minus 225. Yeah, minus 225. So yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I can find it on FanDuel before we jump out of here. If I can find the over under on this one.
Yeah. I'm seeing his, minus 230, 225, 240, 230, 215 on Bet Rivers.
Yeah, they don't have it out anywhere for the over under yet. I have to imagine they're expecting an early finish, and that's why. They're just trying to figure out how early. So,
Right.
yeah, I'm pumped for this card, though. This is a really good main card. I don't think we sold the people at home enough on it, but great fights, great fighters, and this main event, you're not going to want to miss it because Joe Pyfer is potentially the future. And if you know about any sort of sports stock apps that are legitimate, I always see ads for Prediction Strike. I don't know about them. If you've used them in the past, let us know in the comments, because I feel like a guy like Joe Pyfer would be somebody good to get in on that. Like if you know someone now that's a big prospect, and I don't know how any of these exchanges work, but if you know and you have an experience with them, let us know in the comments. Also, like, comment, subscribe, please. General comments are accepted too. Let us know what you think about our picks. Follow us on social media at PickinFightsTom, at PickinKeith. You can listen to us and watch us on Spotify as well. Please subscribe over there if you haven't as well. Leave us a review. Listen to an episode. Skip to the end. It's fine. Just, get us out there. We really appreciate it. We appreciate you at home. I appreciate you for being here another Sunday with me, Tom. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Have a great week.